IELTS Listening Test. You will hear a number of different recordings and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 parts. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to Part 1. Part 1. You will hear a student calling a moving company to transport items to a new apartment. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Good morning, Swift Relocations. This is Diane speaking. How can I help you today?
Hi there. Yes, I'm looking to book a move. I've got quite a few items, including some bulky ones, so I was told you specialize in that sort of thing.
Absolutely, that's exactly what we do. Let me just pull up our booking form. Can I start with your full name, please?
Sure. It's Marcus Holt. That's Holt.
Perfect, thank you, Mr. Holt. And where will you be moving to? Could I get the new address?
Right, yes. It's flat 4, 22 Birchwood Lane. That's in the Kensington area.
Birchwood Lane. I've got that. And what's the postcode?
It's W86PT.
Lovely. Now, do you have a preferred date for the move?
I was thinking the 14th of August. That would work well for me.
The 14th of August. Let me just check availability. Oh, I'm afraid we're fully booked on that date. We have a slot on the 17th, or we could do the 21st.
The 17th won't work. I've got a prior commitment that day. Let's go with the 21st then.
The 21st of August. Wonderful. I'll pencil that in. And a contact number for you?
Yes. It's 077124
07712443908. Is that right?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. That's my old number. I recently changed it. The correct one is 0773055164.
No problem at all. 0773055164. Got it. And just so we have it on the form, what type of property are you moving into? Is it a house?
No, it's a purpose-built flat. On the 4th floor, actually, which is why I need specialist help.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10.
Understood. That's very helpful. Now, let's go through the items you need transported. What's on your list?
Right. So the biggest concern is my piano. It's an upright, not a grand, thankfully. But it's still heavy. Someone told me you need a special lift for that kind of building?
Yes, for 4th floor moves with large instruments, we use an external hoist. There's an additional charge of £85 for that.
That's fine. I expected something like that.
Great. What else?
I have an antique wardrobe. It's quite old and I'm worried about scratches. Is there anything you can do?
Of course. For antique or fragile furniture, we provide protective bubble wrapping at no extra cost. It's included in the standard package.
Oh, brilliant. Right. I also have about, let me think, 16 boxes. Mostly books and kitchen stuff.
16 boxes, standard handling. That's covered in the base fee. Anything else?
Yes, actually, a motorbike. It's a 125 cubic centimeters. Not enormous, but I don't want it damaged. Does that require special equipment?
Yes. We use a secured ramp for loading and unloading motorcycles. There's a fixed fee of £40 for that.
Fair enough. And the last thing, I have a box of glassware. Very fragile. Champagne flutes, wine glasses, that kind of thing.
For delicate items like that, we always keep them in an upright position throughout the journey. We place them separately in the cab rather than the main hold. There's a small surcharge of £15 for that service.
That's absolutely worth it. I'd rather pay £15 than arrive to find everything smashed.
Absolutely. So let me read that all back to you, Mr. Holt.
That is the end of part 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Part 2. You will hear a radio broadcast about the Greenfield Summer Festival. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15.
Good morning and welcome to Greenfield Community Radio. I'm your host, Andrew Mills, and today we're talking about the most anticipated event of the year, the Greenfield Summer Festival. Joining me is Festival Director Tom Ashby. Tom, welcome. Now, for listeners who might be new to the area, how long has this festival actually been running?
Thanks, Andrew. Always a pleasure.
Wonderful. And this year, I understand there are some changes to the layout of the festival grounds?
Well, it's quite a legacy. The festival was actually established 32 years ago by a small group of local volunteers. So it's very much woven into the fabric of the community. Yes, that's right. We've had to rethink things a bit due to some ongoing drainage work near the river. So the main stage, which has traditionally been positioned by the river, is now going to be set up in the town square. We think it'll actually give it a much better atmosphere.
Oh, that sounds lovely. Now, tell us about the program this year. What's on?
So we've got the craft market back, which was hugely popular last year. And the food competition is returning. That's always a crowd favorite. We have had to make one difficult decision, though. The Children's Workshop series, which we know a lot of families really enjoyed, has unfortunately had to be dropped this year due to budget constraints. We hope to bring it back next year.
That's a shame. Now, what about getting there? The festival site can get quite congested.
Absolutely. We really want to encourage people to leave the car at home this year. The bus service from the town center will be running every 15 minutes throughout the festival weekend. So public transport is definitely the way to go. Cycling is welcome too, but it isn't the only option, and we wouldn't want people to feel limited.
And finally, any requests from the organizers to the public?
Yes, and this is a practical one. We're asking everyone to please bring their own seating this year. The ground can be uneven, and we simply won't have enough chairs available for everyone. Oh, and just to clarify, no pre-registration is needed. Just turn up on the day. And while we love donations, there's no obligation. The festival is free to enter.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Tom. The Greenfield Summer Festival runs from the 19th to the 21st of July. We'll be back after the break with more local news.
Before you hear the rest of the broadcast, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 16 to 20.
Now let's orient ourselves with the map. First, if you're looking for the main entrance, you'll notice 2 orange gates on the left side of the grounds. The one further north, labeled B, is actually reserved for staff and deliveries. So all festival goers should head to the southern gate, which is marked A. Next, the main stage area. We've had to make a last-minute adjustment due to the wind. It was originally going to be in the yellow section at C, but we've now swapped it with the center area for better sound quality. So, the stage is now in the large green zone in the very middle of the map, labeled D. Because of that swap, the food village has taken over the spot where the stage was supposed to be, which is that yellow box at C. It's a bit smaller than last year, but perfectly central. Now, the craft market. If you look to the east, the right-hand side of your map, you'll see 2 pink areas. The larger one, F, is being used for our administrative tents this year. So the market itself is in the smaller, upper pink box at E, just below the riverbank. Finally, the children's zone. It hasn't moved, thankfully. It's still located directly south of the main stage area, right at the bottom center of the grounds. That's point G on your map. Even though we've had to drop the workshops, there's still plenty of space for the little ones to play.
That is the end of part 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Part 3. You will hear 2 students and a tutor discussing a research project on urban green spaces. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
Right. So let's take stock of where you both are with the Urban Green Spaces project. Priya, why don't you start by summarizing what you feel are the key takeaways?
Sure. I think the strongest finding we have is really around psychological welfare. The data showing that residents living near parks consistently reported higher levels of subjective happiness. I think that's the most significant result. I'd agree with that, actually. But I do think the section on atmospheric monitoring data needs more work. The readings we collected only covered a 2-week window, which isn't really enough to draw robust conclusions.
That's a fair point, James. In your draft report, and I flagged this, the analysis of atmospheric monitoring was, I felt, misread. You drew a causal link where the data only showed correlation.
Right, yeah. I can see that now. I'll go back and revise that part.
Good. Priya, what about levels of involvement from community members? You cited some figures there.
Yes, so our participation data showed quite low engagement overall. Around 23% of surveyed residents had actively used a communal green space in the previous month. But I think that statistic alone needs more context. We'd need further fieldwork to really understand why.
Exactly. Don't present a number without interrogating it. Now, the section on ecological variety, James, you wrote that?
Yes. I was trying to argue that the variety of species found in residential areas plays a functional role in maintaining ecological balance. But I'm worried it overlaps with a 2019 paper by Hartman et al., which made essentially the same argument.
You're right to flag that. That topic has been well covered in the existing literature. You need to either differentiate your angle significantly or reconsider its place in the report.
And what about the section on distribution of financial resources? Government funding. I wrote that part.
That one I thought was genuinely strong. The data you found on how councils allocate budgets to green infrastructure is original and relevant. That section can stay as it is.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30.
Now let me tell you what I think needs to change structurally. First, and I feel strongly about this, your prior research summary is far too long. It's taking up nearly a quarter of the report. You need to trim it significantly.
How much should we cut?
Aim for half the current length. Focus only on the studies that directly inform your methodology. Second, I'd strongly recommend including a visual diagram of your findings, something that maps the relationships between the variables clearly. Reviewers respond well to that.
Should we restructure the methodology section at all?
No, I think your research process section is actually fine. Leave it as it is. And don't move the conclusion. Some students think a conclusion-first structure is more engaging, but for academic reports it's unconventional and won't go down well with the panel. One last thing, and this is important. The final hand-in date is the 15th. That date is firm. Submissions must go through the online portal. No emailed copies will be accepted. And just to be absolutely clear, there will be no extensions regardless of the reason.
Got it. Thanks, Dr. Wells.
That is the end of part 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Part 4. You will hear a university lecture on the ecology of urban river systems. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're continuing our module on applied ecology with a focus on urban river systems, a topic that I think is genuinely underrepresented in mainstream ecological discourse, despite its enormous practical relevance. Urban rivers are under pressure from a range of human activities. Chief among these threats is surface water discharge, or what we technically call runoff, which carries pollutants from roads, rooftops, and industrial surfaces directly into watercourses, often bypassing any form of treatment. One of the most immediate consequences of this contamination is a reduction in water transparency. As sediment and particulates accumulate, the clarity of the water diminishes, and this has a direct impact on photosynthetic activity among submerged aquatic vegetation. No light reaching the riverbed means no primary production, and that has cascading effects throughout the food web. Alongside pollution, we must consider the problem of invasive species. These organisms, often introduced accidentally through shipping or aquarium releases, disrupt the natural ecological hierarchy, that is, the established food chain structure of river communities. Native species find themselves outcompeted, and the functional roles they once played are either lost or taken over inefficiently by the invaders. Now, nature does provide some defense mechanisms. The riparian zone, that band of vegetation growing along the riverbank, acts as a series of natural buffers, filtering pollutants before they enter the water and stabilizing the banks against erosion. The problem is, in urban environments, these protective zones are frequently removed to make way for development or flood defenses. Migratory fish species face a particularly acute challenge: man-made barriers. Weirs, culverts, and dams act as physical obstructions that prevent fish from reaching their spawning grounds. Even relatively small structures can be insurmountable for species like brown trout or Atlantic salmon. To assess the health of a river system, ecologists frequently turn to macroinvertebrates, creatures like mayfly larvae, stoneflies, and freshwater shrimps. These organisms are extraordinarily sensitive to water chemistry changes, making them reliable biological indicators of overall river quality. A diverse macroinvertebrate community signals a healthy river. A depleted or homogeneous one tells a very different story. Thermal pollution is another concern. As urban areas absorb and radiate heat, and as climate change drives up ambient temperatures, river water warms. Warmer water holds less dissolved oxygen, leading to what we call depletion. And when oxygen levels fall below critical thresholds, fish kills and broader ecosystem collapse can follow rapidly. One of the most striking features of degraded urban rivers is the near-total absence of plant cover along the banks. This lack of riparian vegetation not only removes the buffering function I mentioned earlier, but also eliminates vital habitat for insects, birds, and small mammals that depend on these marginal zones. River restoration initiatives are increasingly common, but to be effective, they must prioritize what ecologists call habitat connectivity, that is, the ecological linkage between isolated patches of suitable habitat. A restored stretch of river that exists in isolation, surrounded by impermeable urban surfaces, will always underperform relative to one that is integrated into a broader green network. Finally, and this is critical for anyone considering a career in environmental monitoring, long-term ecological studies are only meaningful if they apply a consistent systematic approach across all measurement sites and time periods. Without rigorous methodology, comparisons become impossible and data sets lose their scientific value. This is, I would argue, the single most important lesson to take from this module. Next week we'll be looking at specific restoration case studies from European cities. Please come prepared having read the Muller and Chen papers on the reading list. That's all for today.
That is the end of Part 4. You now have 1 minute to check your answers.